The protest today is, as people probably aware, at RAF High Wycombe, which is the high command of the RAF in Britain and is responsible for planning and overseeing the surveillance flights that fly over Gaza, helping to identify targets for the IDF. They claim that this is part of an attempt to locate hostages. Well, in fact, there has not been any hostage freed by any of these missions or attempts, and they are clearly involved in targeting targets for the IDF, including, it seems quite possible, the journalists who were targeted in their tent, the Al Jazeera team in Gaza City. This protest organised today is part of a growing number of protests, mass protests, targeting the arms supply chain in Britain. And I think, we are not facing the IDF, we are not facing Israel, we are the participant, British government and state, in the genocide, supplying arms to IDF and to Israel. So the protest today doesn't exist in isolation. On the 8th of October, there will be another series of protests at the same 3 arms factories that were targeted that we held protests on the 17th of June, plus 2 or 3 more yet to be announced. So we have booked from Dorset PSC a coach on the 8th of October to go again to Lockheed Martin in Havant. And there will be other mass protests at Rochester, British Aerospace and in Sheffield. And just to be aware, these are all plants on the F-35 supply chain. So parts are manufactured in Havant, transported to Rochester, and then flown out from RAF Lynham to the Nevatim Desert, where they are assembled as part of the IDF, the Israeli Air Force, F-35 squadrons that fly over to Gaza to bomb the hospitals, to bomb the buildings, to target journalists, etc. and so forth. So it's a direct supply chain, and I think it is important that the movement has really begun to target these plants on a mass scale. To be honest, I'd like to see such mass blockades that we shut them bloody well down. That's what I'd like to see us do. But also there's a couple of other really important markers coming up. And first of all, the next National March is on the 6th of September. But the 6th of September is another important date, because I think the last National March was a watershed, because it showed that first of all there were new waves of people coming onto the mass movement. The biggest single number of people ever to join PSC on a national march was on the last one. We found that locally in Dorset, but it was a watershed for another reason. Because I think what we saw in Parliament Square was mass defiance of the attempt by the British government and the British state to suppress the right to protest. And those demonstrations against the prescription of Palestine action, which is a threat to the entire movement, showed that they are having a resonance across the movement. And there were thousands of people in the square, not with placards that were going to get themselves arrested, but showing solidarity. And I think the next National March on the 6th will see huge numbers. And I hope delegations from the national, we need to link the two together. Yes. You can't separate the reason the government and the British state is trying to suppress the right to protest is a response to the mass movement, and in particular to defend what they see as national interest and the arms supply chain. And if they get away with it, they will come after, they will rack up the suppression against us all. If they lose, which I think is a possibility, it'll be a victory for the whole movement. And I think we should show solidarity without in any way kind of, detracting from the mass mobilizations and the mass protest demonstration on the 6th. I think we have to find a way of doing that to send a message personally to the government. The government is split. The big voices in the judiciary are saying this was a mistake. Andrew Neil, hardly a known left-winger, is criticising the government as being completely stupid for prescribing Palestine action in this way and so forth. So there's big divisions, and when their side is divided, we should open those divisions up. What I'm involved in a initiative under the banner of Protest is Not Terrorism. Some of you might have seen the letter by international scholars like Naomi Klein and many others who got the front page lead story in The Guardian last week that's hosted on the Protest is Not Terrorism site. And we are, it's now got support from the National Executive of the National Education Union, the Bakers Union, many leading activists and others. I think that's the kind of context, but I just want to thank everyone for filling the coach today and going to RAF High Wycombe, and let's give them hell. Free, free
Palestine!
From the river to the sea!
Palestine will be free!
Thank you, Rob. Well said.
The reality is that what we want from our government right now is to stop all arms sales to and from Israel, to put in place the most severe sanctions regime the world has ever seen against the racist, criminal Israeli state. And we must tell them every single day, as we are telling the RAF High Command today, we will never forget and we will never forgive. And we will do everything in our power to ensure that they sit in The Hague for the rest of their lives, because that is what they deserve. But more than that, it is because of our actions, it is because of the constant protests that get bigger and bigger over 22 months. But most importantly, it is because of the courage and resilience of the Palestinian people that we know that as surely as South Africa was freed from the racist system of apartheid, so too will Palestine be freed from apartheid, from occupation, and from genocide. And we, all of us, together, will do everything possible to ensure that that day comes as soon as possible. So thank you for being here. And in the words of Nelson Mandela, our freedom is incomplete without the freedom of the Palestinians. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew.